in the middle of winter on a glorious winter cold and frosty day, and we've got this beautiful specimen of witch hazel, Latin name Hamamelis virginiana, and we don't use the flower really medicinally, we use the bark and the leaves, but yes, you recognise it by this beautiful flower. And its properties are it's astringent, and it's often known for its skin products, so we use witch hazel water as a skin toner, and it is used in cosmetic industry for all sorts of face products, and it has got anti-aging and anti-wrinkle properties, and there have been studies done that show that it's got protective benefits. It's also protective against UV light, so after sunbathing it will help with that sun exposure and mop up free radicals. It's also used externally for varicose veins and hemorrhoids.
You say it's astringent. What makes it astringent?
It contains tannin, so that's astringent. There's also a bitter principle in there, but there's some volatile oil, which I think is a lovely smell. Can you smell it on there? It's quite very subtle.
So it's the bark that you use?
Yes, and the bark is taken off in strips because obviously you don't want to destroy the plant.
You just cut it along?
The bigger stems, so strips are taken off.
When you chew it, you can really feel the astringent.
So
tannins.
It's not as strong as something like oak, or really.
It has the same kind of tannins, I read somewhere, as oak, but just not as concentrated, is that?
No, so it's much gentler. So if you're using it internally for stomach upsets and bleeding, obviously you need to know what the cause is, but sort of acute problems, so say diarrhea in children, you tend to use then the leaves because that's slightly less astringent, a bit milder. So if you were using any part of the herb, you'd use about a teaspoon to a cup of water, and you'd simmer that for 5 to 10 minutes.
So would you say sort of one twig like this would be enough for one?
Yes,
cup of water?
You could get like a peeler and just scrape it off.
And I happen to have a very
Okay.
fine peeler here in my pocket. You
Bit
would
of
take
a
it
thicker
further down.
bark, yes. The twigs are what are used to make distilled witch hazel.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
That because there's more in, do you think, or less? Or what?
Less. The distilled witch hazel doesn't have the same astringent properties as the bark.
So could you use it as for sore gums? Because I can really feel that it
Yes, so just to
Right.
tone the gums. If you've got bleeding gums, it can be used as a mouthwash. And you could use that decoction that you've made as a compress as well on varicose veins.
What is astringency? What does that mean?
So it will help tone the veins, so it'll make them less leaky.
So it draws together
so
tissues.
Tightens those.
I suppose it's like when you tan leather, isn't it? You tan skin into leather.
And you
so
tighten
it pulls
everything.
it, tighten it up, so
Yes.
it tightens up everything.
I use witch hazel in creams and suppositories. So for hemorrhoids, the suppositories are very good, but a cream with witch hazel in will work very well. So it helps with inflammation and itching and soreness. Because where there's blood pooling, it gets very itchy, and the witch hazel helps to cool while it tones.
So that's fantastic to find out that a herb that is in the middle of winter, very easy to recognize.
Yes.
I mean, you wouldn't miss this, would you? That you can use that as an astringent, you say, to tone up veins or tissues, whether it's bleeding gums or the other end.
Yes.
And you could make your own cream. Because it's a bark, you need to simmer it with the water instead of like with peppermint tea or something. You just pour the water over. But with when it's a bark, you have to simmer it to get
That's
the
right. That's a
active
decoction.
constituents. Yeah.
Yes.
And that's called a decoction.
Yes.
And
So
you could use that decoction then to make an ointment.
you can just use that decoction as a compress. You can use it to put on bruises and abrasions. It's a really good first aid remedy.
And if you took it internally, you would just drink the decoction then.
Yes.
And if you have diarrhea, because you tone together
Yes.
the colon, and you said that that also would work for heavy periods. That's interesting that it sort of goes into the system.
Yes.
It's not just directly
Yes.
through the gut.
So yes, it can really help for heavy periods. With tannins, you don't want to take them for too long a period of time. So anything like that is just usually for a few days, so that's absolutely fine.
So it's really you use it for acute things.
Yes.
And but tea, people drink tea all the time. And tea has tannin in as well, hasn't it?
It does.
But not as much as in
And
this one, as in Witch-Hazel.
Yes, I mean all teas, herb teas, black teas have tannin, and it's not advisable really to drink tea with your food, so I would normally suggest to have your teas of whichever kind between meals.
And is that because it sort of tans the gut, so it's not as things aren't absorbed as easily?
Yes, it prevents the absorption of all your nutrients and your B vitamins and things like that.
And of course that makes a lot of sense, because if you have an inflammation somewhere, you want to tighten it down, but if you want to absorb, you want to open it up.
So,
do you know where the name comes from?
well, hamamelis comes from the Greek word, which means like an apple tree. It's often the size of an apple tree. This
This is just
could
a bit
be a little
small
bit
for- yeah.
taller, but
The petals are quite sweet.
they are, aren't they?
So mel
Yeah.
is
Honey.
honey, isn't it?